Hi everyone, my name's Ryan Stanton, and I'm here today to give you a talk on the audiences of the Adventure Zone in hopes of revealing a bit more about the ways that actual play can function as inclusive gaming media.
So first off, what is actual play? For those of you that don't know, actual play is a type of show where people record and broadcast themselves playing tabletop role-playing games and release it online as entertainment. The format bears similar DNA to a variety of types of gaming content creation, such as let's plays or streaming, except with a focus more so on the narrative that the people are creating with these TTRPGs. The format has also won the Diana Jones Award for Excellence in Gaming, as it has done more to popularize role playing games than anything since the 1980s, according to the Diana Jones Award Committee. This popularity is both in terms of making the games accessible to those who do not typically play role playing games, and in terms of making the games inclusive for those who are often excluded or othered in gaming circles due to long standing stereotypes of who gamers are. Despite this, however, there hasn't been significant work analysing actual play or placing it in the broader game studies sphere. As a result, this is what I aim to do with my honours thesis. To do this, I used the case study of the Adventure Zone, or TAZ. TAZ is one of the most, if not the biggest, actual play podcast, and it has been praised by numerous people as being accessible and inclusive, using those words in the ways in which I defined them previously. In order to study TAS, I surveyed two fan communities, one on Facebook and one on Reddit. I posted a survey with 9 multiple choice questions and 6 short or long answer questions and received over 1,500 responses in 7 hours. This exceeded expectations, which was great, but it also meant that we had to shut the survey down early, which biased results heavily towards the North American continent due to the hours that were active. So that's my methodology and that's the background. Now we can get into the interesting stuff, which is the data that I found out. Hopefully we can glean some insights from it. So first up, we have the demographic data collected from the respondents. This was collected in order to examine the way the inclusivity of the show was reflected in the makeup of the audience in comparison to, say, the audience of tabletop role-playing games. As you can see, it's kind of a mixed bag. The gender identity shown, for example, was more diverse than the statistics put out by Wizards of the Coast, creators of Dungeons and Dragons. Age was similarly diverse in that it skewed young, like Wizards of the Coast and other statistics. Ethnic identity, however, was overwhelmingly white, which seems to be far less than what other surveys show in terms of ethnic identity of tabletop role-playing games. It should be noted, however, that these data points are not entirely representative of the community due to the self-selective nature of the survey and its limited hosting locations. In terms of accessibility, we can see that the comments from the Diana Jones Award Committee are indeed accurate. The show was split roughly 50-50 between those that had played TTRPGs before and those that hadn't, and almost a third of audience members surveyed had played TTRPGs after listening to the show. We can see from this that actual play occupies a unique space in that it really does bring in those unfamiliar with the games and encourages them to invest in them, something which we saw more in later responses, which I'll discuss next. The relationship between actual play and TTRPGs was a complex one raised in many responses, most of which fell into one of two slightly paradoxical categories. On one hand, listeners appreciated that Taz was not a TTRPG, as the creators prioritized narrative and comedy over the rules of the systems used. On the other, many enjoyed the use of the systems, the dice rolls, and the other aspects, which all created a unique sense of chaos and improvisation unavailable in other forms of entertainment. The success of Taz lied in its ability to balance these two schools of thought, creating a show which could give a vicarious play experience for those that craved that, while also providing a dramatic story for those that didn't. While not a direct representation of TTRPG play, Taz provides a listening experience close enough to satisfy most fans. Most fans, regardless of their demographic, also noted that the show's handling of its diverse cast was well done, and many explicitly noted it as a reason they enjoyed the show. But I want to dive into one specific example which caught a lot of criticism from some people, as it highlights some of the key points that many responses made. So, in the third arc of the show, the creators introduced the first canonically lesbian couple. Fans responded very positively until, at the climax of that arc, they were both killed off in a manner which fell into the bury your gays trope. The creators were unaware of this trope, and when it was pointed out to them, they apologized, they pledged to do better, and before the story's end, they brought the characters back to life. This incident was raised in a lot of responses, and I want to unpack the key ideas presented in them because they not only touch on the ways that the show handles inclusivity, but also the important role the creators play in shaping this, which we haven't really yet touched on. So the creators come from a place of privilege and occasionally mess up in their attempts to represent marginalised groups in TAS. But the reason fans remain positive, which was given both by respondents and is referenced in Lee Fine's study of the McElroys, is authenticity. The fans may criticise the errors, but if they believe that the McElroys are authentic or trying their best, they would continue to have an overall positive opinion of the show and the creators. In contrast, those that felt that the goals or apologies from the McElroys were merely virtue signalling or inauthentic noted that they had turned to other shows where the representation felt genuine, such as the other actual play Dimension 20. This is interesting to contrast with the discourse in other gaming communities. While many have reactionary movements that aim to de-emphasize inclusivity or representation, fans of actual play like TAS view authentic representation as an important factor in their decision to listen. Many responses indicated that, in the case of TAS, the creators were instrumental in their listenership, be that due to their previous work or the authenticity seen in the show. Finally, it should be highlighted that the fans surveyed were big fans. 88% had re-listened to episodes of the show at least once, and a majority had supported the show monetarily in some form. I mention this as when combined with the previously mentioned self-selective nature on limited sites of the survey, it highlights that this data only covers a small portion of TAS fans and actual play listeners. Well, I've raised some interesting points here, I hope they really should be taken as a starting point for further study and not conclusive or rock hard evidence in and of themselves. Thankfully, however, I'm planning on exploring some more of these questions in the future in a PhD about gaming podcasts. This should pick up on some of the ideas referenced here, so I hope I'll be able to present on that in the future. Thanks for your time.